My name is Jake Sohn. I work for M&G Investments in Singapore and Hong Kong, and I'm the fund specialist for APAC for the company, as well as I look after the private banks and family offices in Hong Kong. So M&G is probably the biggest asset management firm that you've never heard of, and that's because in Asia we've only been here for 3 years. So I used to work for them in London and came out here 3 years ago to help set the business up. But in the UK, we actually founded the mutual fund industry back in 1931, so a very, very old firm. And actually we're quite large. We're almost $500 billion in assets under management, so it's a very large firm. And probably the last thing that's interesting is that we were acquired by the Prudential, the UK insurance company, about 15 years ago. So we're a fairly safe and stable parent company behind us. I think for these kind of live events, it does take a lot of your time and resources, so you have to prepare. So I think doing your due diligence to filter who you want to meet and who you don't want to meet, importantly as well. Because you don't have to be a nice guy, because if the interests aren't aligned, what's the point for both parties? So I think just doing your filtering, doing your due diligence, and just having your prioritized list of prospects that you want to go after, I think is important. I think live events are important because, of course, we have our own personal and business networks that we can utilize. But live events are nice to expand that network, because you're always going to meet new people and sometimes meet existing clients as well. And so it's definitely a critical part of our marketing budget. Of course, I can't give you a specific figure, but in general, if I think about the different types of marketing activities, I think live events will give you a fairly high ROI, and that's just because of the personal connection. So meeting face to face, and if you do develop that bond and rapport, then it's much more easier to follow up afterwards. If you send 1,000 emails, you're going to get a very, very low ROI because you get a very low response rate because it's not personalized. So I think having that personal connection is quite important. Actually, it's interesting because that is something that's come across in the different forums and panels quite a lot. It's interesting because they're talking about their business, so family offices, multifamily offices, and their wealthy clients. It's all about the personal relationship. So, I don't think it's an Asian thing. I think it's a human thing. So human beings, love doing business with people they actually like. So if you have a productive business relationship and an enjoyable one, that's the best of both worlds. So I think it's a human thing more than just Asia. So besides doing the proper due diligence on targeting and prioritizing your prospects, I think it's important to prepare on what you're actually going to talk about. There are, I'm sure, lots of different investment management firms have lots of different investment strategies and opportunities, but instead of just throwing 100 darts and see what sticks, I think it's coming up with what you think is the best for these clients. I think there's a fairly similar type of clients that attends these events, family offices, multifamily offices, and EAMs. And so I think thinking like them, putting yourself in their shoes, thinking about what kind of investments do they want in this current environment gives you the best shot, instead of just saying, okay, we have 100 funds, here you go and pick one. I'm pretty sure that most people aren't closing deals on the spot because it takes time. So to go from introduction to due diligence to closing deals is not going to happen right now. And this is just all about connections. So it's meeting new people, new prospects, telling them about the interesting investment opportunities, getting that initial spark of interest. And if there is interest, you have to do your work to follow up, of course, and go through the formal due diligence process. So I think this is just the beginning of hopefully a long conversation with your prospects, and hopefully we'll convert in due course. Well, I would say it's not too difficult because my clients like me, so it's not too hard. But everyone is busy. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of various investment product providers in the world, and getting FaceTime, of course, is difficult. And so live events are good because you have a captive audience. In this case, over 3 days, and there's over 80 investors here. And so I think this is a great way to get short introductory meetings in time for investors. When we evaluate live events and business development type events, I think there's a few things that are important. I think most importantly is the audience. If these attendees aren't your client base, or type of client base, if they're not interested in what you're offering, there's no kind of marriage there. I think that's the most important thing. I think after that, I think the format is important because right now there's a bit of speed dating involved right now, and there's a bit of high-level investment discussions or family office related issues like succession planning spoken at in presentations. And so I think getting the balance of these two is nice. So the format is definitely important. And the third thing I think is the quality of the other, not attendees, but on the investment side, the investment firms that come along. Because if there were, let's say, 5 different competing firms doing the same exact thing, you don't necessarily want to fight for airtime as well here. So I think the nice thing about the Marcus Evans events is when I look around the room and look at the other peers in the industry, they're very different, very diverse. So I think there's a mining company, there's an Australian real estate company, a long-only asset management firm like us, and so it's nice to see that diversity of ideas for the investors. In the end, the biggest kind of value is if you get an investment. To be honest, looking at the deal size and ticket sizes in the high net worth and ultra high net worth space, one ticket will pay for all the costs of the event in actuality. But I think besides that, there is the other value of expanding your network, expanding your sphere of influence, and getting your firm, whether it's a large company or a small company, just more well known in the industry. I think is also there's a soft benefit there.